How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Elite Battle League channel. Lionheart Plays here, and today we're going to be going over the Season 5, Week 5 power rankings of the Elite Battle League. Of course, before we get started, make sure you guys check out all the coaches in the descriptions below. Subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel and all that good stuff. Also, check out the top 5 plays, the top 5 fails, and the weekly roundups hosted by Lonely Hermit, Nate Tube, and for the remainder of the season at least, Latin Luigi. And without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to try to make this a shorter video than normal. Just a quick little announcement for you guys as well. This will be the last time that we do a power rankings for the regular season, as we do not do power rankings for the playoffs and everything. So yeah, this will be the last power rankings of the season before we pick it back up next season. Alrighty, that being said, I am going to go ahead and give the disclaimer right now that this week was particularly difficult to rank, so we basically went off of, or at least me, we went off of how well the coaches played, misplays that they may have done and whatnot, along with incorporating scorelines. It's a little bit weird, but in this case, with the different scorelines, some may have had worse scorelines, but may have played better than the others, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, this week was definitely difficult to rank. But we're gonna go ahead and get started here. Of course, make sure you check out the roundups hosted by Lonely Hermit, so that you guys can get the play-by-plays as to what happened with each week, or with each play of the battle for this week. Alrighty. Starting off with the number 16 spot, we have the Carolina Garchomps, coached by Nukebox. We placed him here last because the play, he basically just threw away his legends right at the beginning. Garchomp Dynamax took out the Zeraora, gone. Took out the Naganadel, gone. And then the rest of the battle just kind of basically went for itself. It didn't end up well for Carolina. I think that the play of sacrificing his legends right at the very start of the battle wasn't a very good play, especially if they wanted to win. Of course, there are some things happening in the background and everything, but still, definitely not a good look. Not to be mean or anything, but I mean, it is what it is at that point, Of course, we don't have any references since we don't have a battle to look out for his perspective, so we can't really say if maybe there was a strat. I will say this, can't tell if there was a strat with his play. So we have no knowledge of that, unfortunately, but as of right now, on paper, wasn't a good strat to go off of, basically sacking off those two restricted picks. In the number 15 spot, we have Walton Wingles, coached by Nate Tube. Now, I gotta say that his strats are brilliant, right? They're great. The problem with Nate is that once those strats go out the window and they don't work, he flounders and he doesn't recover. He even said it in his video. And that's exactly what happened here, which ended up, a pretty devastating loss as far on paper, right? When it comes to Walton. They went up against the Colchester Celtics. And basically the Solgaleo just mopped up and everything. We're going to get into that later on. But basically, Walton basically floundered after the superpower strat didn't really take him anywhere. It was a great strat. The mentality was there. Superpower, contrary, baton pass onto something stronger. It was great, right? The strat is sound, but it didn't work out ultimately. And from there, he just never recovered thereon after. In the number 14 spot, and this is where it starts to get a little bit weird, right? Because of the scoreline between the next two players and whatnot, but based off how things were played off, in the number 14 spot, we had the Detroit Lux Rays that was coached by Gamer Views. When it comes to this match, if I'm going to be completely honest, this match was kind of hard to watch. I'm not sure what kind of prep was put into Detroit's team, particularly with the Salamence. The Salamence should have naturally outsped if given a jolly nature. And I think it turned out that it did have a jolly nature, but it's possible that maybe some of the speed EVs or IVs weren't invested. Maybe it wasn't invested into speed despite it having a beneficial nature. Not too sure as to what happened there. We won't know unless we get, unless there seems to be some sort of clarification on that. But I mean, not that it matters now at this point. But yeah, I'm not too sure what happened when it comes to the Salamence prep, because the Reshiram shouldn't have outsped, and it did instead, and it got destroyed by the Reshiram. The movesets were also a little bit questionable on the Magnezone for one. Yeah, and then it was quite a bit of misclicking as well, which he got lucky that his opponent didn't really take advantage of that and whatnot. But yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that. It was just not very pleasant to watch when it comes to the prep, the movesets, and some of the misclicks there, which misclicks can happen. Are really not going to hold that much, but it's just mainly the Salamence and the Magnezone prep that kind of had me a little, thinking like, what's going on here? Anyway, moving on to the number 13 spot, we have Florida Rowlets, coached by Mike the Quick. Much like number 14, we have some bad prep, but also, if we're going to be completely honest, this wasn't a team that would, in other words, what I'm saying is that the team matches weren't there. It was not a match that ended up in his favor. They went up against the LA Inferno. The LA Inferno just had a team that just countered his wonderfully. He got outplayed and he got walled, especially by that Runerigus, which we will cover later on. But he just got walled at most points, and he just overall got outplayed. Man, there's really not much to say with that one. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to number 12, who is held by the Iowa Incineroar, coached by Infernoman. Now with this one, based on Landon's previous experience and everything, I know that he can battle. He's actually a pretty good battler. However, in this particular battle, I feel like Zacian took a little bit too much unnecessary damage from the Wild Charge. Starting Incineroar may not have been a bad thing, but we know that Sly has been known to start with his Kyogre at some points in time. So so I don't know, maybe a different lead could have been done. When maybe he saw the Kyogre, instead of swapping into the Zacian right then and there, he maybe could have swapped onto a different Pokemon. I believe he had the Vanillux at that point. Maybe he could have swapped onto there. Regardless, I think that the Zacian play wasn't as good. I think that it took a lot of unnecessary damage, which basically checked it throughout the duration of the match. And once the sword was gone, everything else just kind of fell through. Moving up to number 11, we have the Texas Tyranitar, coached by the Doorman. Now, the Doorman had probably the best season out of his entire EBL career. This is the best team that he has drafted throughout his EBL career. And he has come a long way, along with most of the coaches here, like Nate Tube and whatnot. He has come a long way when it comes to battling. Excuse me. That being said, he decided to go with his, I don't want to say blitzkrieg strategy, by just Dynamaxing the Yveltal. I want to think of another word, but I guess he just wanted to go balls out, Dynamax the Yveltal. And the thing with me is that, or the thing that I've noticed is that he saw the Quagsire, he predicted the Yawn, that he didn't switch out, and that kind of just made his plan flounder from there. And I feel like, much like Nate Tube, once his main plan floundered, didn't really recover enough to try to get him the win. So yeah, after his plan failed, he never really recovered. Moving on to number 10, we have the Manchester Greninjas, coached by the Raging Lake. The Raging Lake actually did a pretty good job this week. There were no sweeps involved. They managed to get a 6-3 for the scoreline. Still lost, but still they played well against a really tough opponent. They went up against the DC Starmies, coached by It's Really Timmy B. They did a really good job, despite their current record in the season. And coming in at the number 9 spot, we have the Fort Sill Warriors, coached by myself, yours truly. And we went up against the New York Metangs, coached by Metamaxis, with a 6-5 scoreline favoring New York. Now, on paper, this was a loss for Fort Sill, but regardless, a win, as this was the last battle that we have to do and prepare for. So yeah, might seem a little bit weird that it's a win, but trust me, it's something that we've been trying to do for quite some time. Going into the specifics of this battle on Fort Sill's side and everything, or just the observations in general for this battle, both of us played really well. It really could have been anyone's match despite certain opinions, and the scoreline definitely showed that. New York on their side showed their calculation prowess with their preparations, and us on the other hand, we showed what experience can do with a team like ours. What I mean by that is, of course, when it comes to the draft this season, this isn't exactly the best team that we've drafted so far. However, I feel like it isn't exactly too bad. And in this match, it definitely put in quite a bit of work. It definitely put in quite a bit of work in this intense match. Now, when it comes to the commissioner's choice of Battle of the Week, this match won that. So this is the Battle of the Week per the commissioner, and rightfully so, because this was truly a battle of the masters. We'll go ahead and say this. I will go ahead and toot my horn a little bit, and I feel like that's okay. Despite having one off season, it's still nothing compared to the dynasty that we've left behind in the league. And we're still the kings of battle, so it's all good there. We're going to go ahead and move on to the number 8 spot, which is the DC Starmies. DC Starmies, coached by It's Really Timmy B. Now, they went up against the Raging Lake, as mentioned earlier. They got the win. However, this was a 6-3, and they end up going up against a weaker opponent that had been swept quite a number of times this previous season. That being said, because of the amount of Pokemon that were lost during this battle, whether intentional or not intentional, we gave DC the number 8 spot. Could have pulled out a different strat if needed. Maybe those Pokemon dying wasn't necessary. In the number 7 spot, however, we had the New York Metangs, coached by Metamaxis. And like I was saying in the previous mention when we were talking about my team, it just shows that Maxis played and calced well. The battle was close to each of our last Pokemon. I will say this, just a slight little thing here. Like I said before, this team, for a team that, was deemed underestimated by him in the beginning, the team put quite a bit of work. I wouldn't say underestimated, but, what was that word? We'll use underestimated because I don't have the brain power to think right now. But yeah, regardless of all that though, the various Pokemon living on this red slivers of health just shows how accurate Max's calculations are and everything. So again, proving, that he is well deserving of the record that he has now. So congratulations, Maxis, on your win. Moving on to number 6, we have the Snowdonian Frostmoths, coached by Jakey XY. Now, Jakey pulled off a massive win against Texas. They played the lead Pokemon well. The Quagsire moved in with his strats. I feel like the Mimikyu was misplayed a little bit, however. I feel like a couple of things could have been done. He could have gotten either gritty, but that's up for debate if he could have gone a little bit more gritty with a third Swords Dance. Regardless, I think that he could have just gone for Shadow Sneaks all over the place, and that would have guaranteed him he got the win regardless, but I think that the Mimikyu death could have been prevented. Personally, I would have played the Mimikyu slightly differently, but still, regardless, this is a big win for Snowdonian Frostmoths, excuse me. Up at number 5, we have the TJ Dropouts, coached by Smoosh Moosh. They went up against the Carolina Garchomps, and I think that in this battle, ultimately, TJ taking out the 2 restricted picks from Carolina came out big with the Dynamax Garchomp, and that played a decisive part in having that momentum shift and everything in favor of TJ ultimately. Number 4, we have the Colchester Celtics, coached by Pokepidge. Pokepidge came out big with his Dynamax Sol Galeo, who also got the MVP for the Dynamax conference. It went up to basically essentially sweep Walton. Not much to say there. It was a pretty decisive victory. Number 3 goes to the Montebello Morpicos, coached by Mr. Toast. Mr. Toast just ultimately outplayed and outpredicted his opponent. A couple of mistakes that were made to bring the scoreline the way it was now ultimately, but regardless, for the majority of the battle, they basically had everything in the bag, you know, from the predictions and everything. Not much to say there. Moving on to number 2, we have the San Antonio Espers. Again, they played the Iowa Incineroar, and ultimately Sly called out most of the things that Iowa was going to do. They outpredicted their opponent. The Kyogre's death made the Zacian take a lot of unnecessary damage, as mentioned earlier, with all the recoil stuff, and that ultimately checked the game for Iowa, and it gave the momentum to San Antonio. Now, in number 1, we have the LA Inferno, coached by Lonely Hermit. Not much to say with this one, again, because Runerigas absolutely walled his Aura, and ultimately he just outplayed and outpredicted his opponent. Not much to say there as well. Now, of course, this does bring the end to the power rankings of Season 5, Week 5, and of Season 5 in general. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up, make it turn blue. Subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel if you have not already. Do you agree with our rankings? If not, go ahead and place them in the comments. If you do, great. If you still don't, then I mean, it's not changing. But let's see, what else is there to say? Yes, check out the coaches in the description. Check out the coaches' channels and all that good stuff in the descriptions below. All that being said, I will see you guys for Season 6 Power Rankings. Adios.